Johnny Fontane is introduced as a famous singer and the godson of Vito Corleone. He was born in a poor Italian-American neighborhood, probably in New York, and grew up alongside Sonny Corleone. From a young age, he showed talent for singing, performing at parties and local bars. It was in that environment that Vito noticed his potential and grew fond of him, becoming his godfather, both in the religious sense and as a protector. In his youth, Johnny sang in nightclubs and dance halls until he was signed by a major record label. There, he began building his career as a successful singer, known for his charm, good looks, and pleasant voice. He quickly became a radio and record star, a true pop idol in the 1940s. However, to achieve that success, Johnny ended up trapped in a contract with an ambitious businessman who exploited his talent and took most of the profits. During Connie's wedding, Vito's daughter, Michael tells Kay how his father helped Johnny early in his career. Johnny wanted to break free from the contract with his first manager, who refused to let him go because Johnny was a goldmine. Vito tried to resolve it amicably. He offered a generous sum of money to buy out the contract. The businessman refused and insulted the offer, so Vito sent Luca Brasi, the family's most feared enforcer, to convince him. Michael tells Kay the famous line, "My father made him an offer he couldn't refuse." Luca Brasi held a gun to his head and told him either his signature or his brains would be on the contract. This anecdote already reveals Vito's method: first attempt things fairly and diplomatically, but resort to force when necessary. Later, already a famous singer, Johnny tries to transition into film. His career starts to decline, he loses his voice partly due to excess, and he sees a role in a war movie as his last chance at a comeback. However, the powerful Hollywood producer Jack Woltz refuses to give him the part for personal reasons. Johnny had seduced one of his young protégés. Desperate, Johnny turns to Vito during Connie's wedding, crying and saying that without this role, his career will be over. Vito calms him down, tells him to stop acting like a baby, and promises he will take care of it. Shortly afterward, Tom Hagen travels to Los Angeles to negotiate with Woltz. He also offers money, but Woltz rudely declines. So, to make Woltz understand Vito's power, the family takes an extreme step. They place the head of his most prized racehorse in his bed while he sleeps. Frightened and out of options, Woltz finally gives Johnny the role, bringing the two worlds together, Johnny Fontane and Frank Sinatra. Now we can connect the two stories and see how The Godfather reflects, in a fictionalized way, the trajectory of Sinatra. Full of ups and downs, controversies, and legends, ups and downs in his career, just like Johnny Fontane in the film, Frank Sinatra began his career as a talented young man from a humble Italian-American community in New Jersey. In the 1940s, Sinatra became one of the biggest music stars, an idol for female fans, with an unmistakable voice and charismatic presence. But by the late 1940s and early 1950s, his popularity dropped drastically. He lost his contract with Columbia Records, his voice seemed weakened, and he got caught up in personal scandals, including his tumultuous marriage to Ava Gardner. This period of decline is very similar to that of the character Johnny Fontane, who also sees his fame fade and fears that his career is over. The most direct parallel between the two is the quest for a movie role to revive their careers. Sinatra desperately wanted the role of Private Maggio in the film From Here to Eternity, 1953. Initially, the studios didn't take him seriously, since his career was declining and his public image was tarnished. However, somehow, rumor has it, with the help of his connections to underworld figures, he landed the part. His performance was acclaimed, and he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, reviving his career. This story closely resembles Johnny Fontane's plea to Vito Corleone to get him a movie role that could save his career. In the film, the help comes in a violent way, the famous horse head, whereas in real life, no threats were ever confirmed, only suspicions, connections to the mafia. Sinatra was photographed and seen with various figures from organized crime, including Lucky Luciano, Sam Giancana, and others. He attended parties, clubs, and events with these men, something relatively common among Italian Americans of his generation, but it fueled the rumors that his career was protected by the mob. One of the most famous photos shows him alongside some of the most powerful mob bosses, which helped strengthen the legend that he had asked for their help to secure the role in From Here to Eternity, or to free himself from oppressive contracts early in his career. These connections were never proven to be directly responsible for anything, but his image remained forever linked to those stories, just as Johnny Fontane was never able to escape the shadow of Vito Corleone. In summary, Johnny Fontane is a caricature of Sinatra, exaggerated, more emotionally fragile, and dramatized for the novel. But the central elements, his meteoric rise, painful downfall, the desperate fight for a career, saving role, and the shadow of the mafia, are directly inspired by Sinatra's real life. The legend of Johnny Fontane wasn't born solely from Mario Puzo's imagination. In reality, he was a mirror of Frank Sinatra, the poor kid who sang in dance halls, who made crowds swoon with his voice, who fell from grace, who desperately needed a film role to get back to the top, and who, they say, had the right men to open the wrong doors. The photos with mob bosses, the whispered stories backstage, made the truth indistinguishable from the legend. Sinatra's controversy with The Godfather, when Mario Puzo published a novel in 1969, the character of Johnny Fontane was immediately seen by the public and critics as a caricature of Frank Sinatra. The similarities were so strong that no one really doubted it. Sinatra was furious about this, feeling that the character smeared his reputation and turned what he saw as his legitimate struggle and genuine talent into a joke. He didn't want the public to believe he had only landed his role in From Here to Eternity thanks to the mafia. The Sinatra vs. Mario Puzo encounter. One night, shortly after the book's success, Mario Puzo was quietly dining at an upscale Hollywood restaurant when, to his surprise, Sinatra showed up. According to Puzo's own account and witnesses, Sinatra approached his table and began shouting at him, calling him a filthy bastard and a parasite. Among other insults, Puzo, shy and not good at confrontation, remained silent while Sinatra continued the verbal assault. At one point, Sinatra picked up a piece of bread and, with disdain, threw it in Puzo's face before walking off muttering. The episode humiliated Puzo, but it also reinforced the idea in the press that Sinatra truly felt exposed by the book, precisely because everyone already suspected his ties to mobsters. In other words, by reacting that way, Sinatra only added fuel to the legend that Johnny Fontane was indeed based on him, and that he had something to hide. Why did this amplify the legend? Because Sinatra was never fully able to convince the public that his connections to the mafia were merely superficial. The photos with Sam Giancana and others were already known, and now he appeared publicly enraged over a fictional character that was supposedly unfair, yet fit the real story a little too well. For many, his fury was a sign that there was truth behind the story. If it wasn't true, why did he get so angry? This episode helped solidify two lasting images of him, that of a brilliant artist, but temperamental and vain, and that of someone who truly knew, and perhaps benefited from, men from the underworld. When Mario Puzo wrote The Godfather, he didn't just create one of the greatest works about the mafia ever made. He also dared to transform rumors and whispers from the underworld into living, charismatic, and tragic characters. Johnny Fontane isn't the protagonist of the book or the film, but he's an important piece because he shows just how far Vito Corleone's power reached, from the streets all the way to the studios of Hollywood. By including the story of a desperate singer, trapped by oppressive contracts and saved by threatening godfathers, Puzo crystallized in the public's mind an idea that had long circulated behind the scenes, that Frank Sinatra only managed to break free from his early contracts and conquer Hollywood because the mafia cleared the path for him. This literary decision was brilliant for several reasons. It turned gossip into art, blending reality and myth. It made visible the influence of the mafia on one of the pillars of American culture, show business. It created a subtle critique of Hollywood's hypocrisy, pretending to be pure while benefiting from shady deals. Even though Sinatra hated the comparison, Johnny Fontane helped immortalize the legend, for better or worse, and embedded in popular culture the image of the talented but weak singer, at the mercy of more powerful men. For his part, Sinatra remains one of the most influential figures of the 20th century, both in music and film, and in shaping the very idea of the American way of life. Although he was never an actor on the level of Brando or De Niro, he earned respect and even an Oscar for his role in From Here to Eternity. He moved between musicals, dramas, and comedies, helping elevate the image of the singer-actor. His friendships and rivalries with presidents, mobsters, famous actresses, and tycoons turned him into an almost mythical figure. The photos with Sam Giancana and other mobsters gave him a dangerous yet seductive aura, one that men admired and women found intriguing. He inspired generations of artists, from Tony Bennett to Lady Gaga, who all owe something, stylistically or musically, to Sinatra. What Mario Puzo did was take all those elements: talent, charisma, flaws, mafia, and, through Johnny Fontane, carve them forever into the public imagination. In a way, Johnny Fontane made sure that even if no one knew Sinatra's true story, everyone believed something like it could be true. And Sinatra, for his part, never fully escaped that shadow, but he also never stopped being the ultimate symbol of style, music, and magnetism. Well, my friends, that's all for today. Now I want to hear from you. Did you know that Sinatra was the inspiration behind Johnny Fontane? Do you think he really had connections with the mafia? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, give it a like, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much. See you next time.